Hey everyone, so this is Coach Edmund here with another video series for this week, and today we all wake up with the big news of River Modern selling 90%, and this is a tremendous result. But at the same time, as a homeowner and investors, right, what does this number transact to? Okay, so today we also want to kind of uncover today with 90% sold, is it that everybody is kind of just chasing launches after launches instead of deciding which one is best for you in the midterm and long term? So today we are going to kind of use this video to use River Modern as a reference point because we already have the prices. We are going to deep dive into seeing how River Modern was being launched, how the selection of units should be done, and at the same time, whether the prices make sense or not, or is actually totally out of range. Okay, so a quick warning, if today this is your first time joining, of course you will want to subscribe the video lah. All right, but at the same time, right, if you have already purchased River Modern property, any unit, I would advise you kindly to just skip this, don't watch this. This video is not for you. Okay, but for the rest of you who are looking to kind of do property and kind of research your way into property instead of guessing, then you want to stay on, because later on what I will be actually uncover is today one of the biggest trap is FOMO. All right, and how can we use our research data and numbers to guide us to look at properties from a different perspective so that you will not get stuck in the event if you buy a property, right? So that's number one. And second, what we're going to cover is I'm also going to do a comparison. I'm going to future the next 3 to 5 years down the road to kind of compare the surrounding properties, including layout and prices, that in the event once the River Valley enclave has already been completed, right? What are the kind of competitions we are looking at? And we are going to use layouts to really kind of compare to see if today you have a unit at River Modern, how does it pan out in the resale market when everybody is selling? So this is something that we want to kind of uncover in today's video, because we have a very good reference point which is just hot off the oven, 90% sold. So how many of you have kind of guessed that it's 90% sold? If that is you, comment below as well that this is also what you have guessed for. So this is one of the key things that we also must understand is today, based on the property market, we also need to make sure that we are not guessing our way into it, but we are deciding what to do based on research, data, and not by hype. Okay, so we all waked up to the news that the property for River Modern has sold 90.55%. All right, so this is, I think, a tremendous result based on today's market sentiment, where a lot of people are also concerned about what is happening in the economy, what is happening in the war situation. But it seems like nothing deters us from buying property. Okay, so I think what we're going to uncover later really is really kind of diving deeper into the prices to see how does River Modern been panned out, how the developer actually price it, and is it really attractive from the get-go. All right, because every one of us, we all understand that from new launches, they all will give a very attractive starting from prices. And from a 2-bedroom, it stated is starting from 1.5 million, 3-bedroom will be from 2.2 million, and the 4-bedroom will be from 4.5 million. So later on, we will go to uncover each floor price to see, is this really what it is? Okay, and at the same time, stay all the way to the end, because at the end, I will also be doing a very close comparison between River Modern, River Facing with another project to see what kind of price point are we looking at, and is River Modern layout really supersede every single one of them, so that when in the resale market, you will stand out. All right, so if this is your first time joining me and you have not kind of subscribe to my channel, this is your best time to actually help me do that, so that it kind of encourage me to continue do more videos, do more strategy videos, or even analytical videos to guide you as a homeowner to make more informed decision and safer decision at the same time. Because today you must understand, River Modern is not the only launch, and there are many coming up, right? So if today you also kind of want to seek a second opinion on how to disqualify 90% of the launches out there, right? So you will never buy with hype emotion or pressure, then you may want to scan the QR code and kind of reach out to us. So we see how we can actually guide you through a structured process instead of you guessing in the marketplace. Because besides, River Modern has just been launched, Nara also has just been launched. We also have Pinery that's coming up, Tengah, Thompsonville, Bayshore, as well as One North area. So there are multiple new launches that is getting the hype out there. But the question is, are all this something for you? If today you have been kind of chasing launches one after another because of your ballot number that is no good, and you keep trying and trying, that may not be your best strategy, all right? Because you may not even understand what is your objective of purchasing that property. So maybe you want to kind of scan the QR code and kind of reach out to us and see, can we kind of get more clarity of what's your plan like? All right, so let us go numbers heavy. All right, so these are the prices for River Modern. Again, these are all as of the launch day, right? Our understanding is there will be an increase of about 2% from the next day onwards, which is today. And so if let's say today you take these numbers as a reference point, because we are not here to highlight how much have you bought purchase or how much have others purchased, but we want to use this as a study to kind of understand a little bit behind the scene of how developers think and what are some of the things that we can learn from, so that we can avoid all these mistakes in the future pricing strategy, right? All right, so one of the key things why we want to study numbers is because every single time when there's a launch and there's a very high volume of transactions, this also indicates that there is a common understanding from the buyers that today this is the benchmark that buyers can accept. And this will form a future pricing guide for all the developers and for all the sellers as well. So it's very important for us to not just understand that there's a launch coming, but also understand how the pricing is going to affect me as a homeowner in future. Does it make sense? All right, so for the 2-bedroom, we're going to first study the mid-floor level type first. And these are all the 2 bedrooms. They're ranging from 538 square feet and all the way to 646 square feet. So I'm not going to pull out all the different sizes, okay, but on general, this is how we want to study. So I'm going to use 2 and 3 bedroom to study the mid-floor as well as the lower floor units to kind of compare it to other developments nearby in River Valley to see what kind of price point are we looking at. All right, so let us just look at 538 square feet, right, for a 2-bed, 1-bath kind of configuration. You can see that on average from a pricing perspective, so whenever you get into a launch period, I think one of the strategy, because you are getting the pricing only on the day of selection, right, you are going to be very overwhelmed. Everybody is shouting, and if you are not over prepared before the selection day, then you're going to put yourself in a very, very difficult decision making placement, right? So what we always do is beforehand, of course, nobody will know the pricing, but we will definitely have certain benchmark pricing on how each floor estimated jump is going to be and how much will be a price that it just don't make sense for us to move forward. So to give you a quick overview, right, for these prices, right, they are jumping about $8,000 per floor. Okay, about $8,000. That is on a per floor level jump on an estimate, right? So if you can see for 538, for the per floor jump, averagely should about there. Okay, and what we have noticed is when we are doing the comparison is that the higher floor units, which is anything above 24th floor onwards, right, they are having a higher floor jump, which goes up to even $10,000. Right, so why is this important for us as homeowners to know? Because if today you're just blindly looking at your favorite number to purchase, or you look at the numbers and then you realize that, oh, that is the only unit left for me, and you just blindly purchasing it, you do not know who your competition up and down is going to be. Right, so that's why the full price list is very important for us when we study it on the get-go, no matter what your ballot number is. If your ballot number is queue number 1, of course, you'll get the full, you'll be able to have a lot of choices, right? But what if you're at the back? Maybe you're in your 300, 400, 600, and there's only that 1 or 2 units left. Are you just going to purchase that property without knowing what your other neighbors have purchased? All right, so this is something I believe is going to be very useful, especially whenever you're doing any launch purchase, because it's a very hype up environment, and very crazy, very overwhelming. And if you don't have somebody to guide you, to kind of bring you into the battlefield, right, you also will be galagabo and overwhelmed. Right, so with this price point, it also give us a indicator that, okay, between 8 to 10,000, is this a fair value for us to look at? Because ultimately, the higher the floor level, sometimes based on price, if I imagine if it's a 8,000 per floor jump, the moment when you grow 10 floors, we're talking about 80,000 easily, all right? And if it's a 10,000, we're talking about 100,000 difference for 10 floors. So this is also another strategy that today you also want to undertake if you are going for high floor units. So one of the other things that we also point out and take note is that, are there any extra jump in terms of per floor level? So do understand that from a developer perspective, they are doing what we call like dollar averaging. I mean, if you are a stock, if you're buying stocks and you have done investment and shares, right, you know what is dollar cost averaging, right? So over a period of time, your amount basically will just become an average. So some days, perhaps for developer, they will lower down their price a little bit, and for some units, they will increase their price a little bit. So this is the same thing that they are doing across the entire development, be it from a floor perspective, they can do that. They can also do for facing, and they can also do for type of property. So this also give us an indicator that today, when we were studying this, we realized for the 27th floor to 28th floor, if you can see the difference, the jump went up more. Okay, the jump went up about 15,000 more instead. So this is what we call the first extra loading jump, right? And everything after 28th floor will follow the 8 to 10,000 jump again. So is this strategy commonly seen in a lot of developments? Definitely, because ultimately they also want to make sure that their properties are desirable, and yet at the same time, maybe perhaps the higher floor units have certain advantage. Like for River Modern, the river facing is already an advantage, which means that they will definitely have a little bit more in terms of quantum for the river facing. And also, if let's say you're going for higher floor units, then there will be also more per floor loading that we see. All right, so this is something that as a homeowner, when you're doing your research, you need to know. And why is this important? Because we do have seen quite crazy numbers lah. I think the craziest number that I've seen is in one project, the per floor unit, and it's not even a high floor unit. A per floor unit actually jumped $150,000. One floor, $150,000. But the key thing is that if you have not studied this, will you have choose the higher floor one or just one floor below it? Doesn't make sense. So that's why, that is the reason why to be overly prepared in a situation like this is only going to help us make better decision. And if the decision is not as ideal, we will just walk away, right? You are not being forced to buy any property. So this is what we see in this. And I also want to take a comparison to the nearest nearby launches that has also just been done, which is Zion Grand. And why do we want to use Zion Grand as an example? Later on, I will have more examples. So Zion Grand is just because this is just the most recent ones that we see. And on average, for the 2 bedrooms, they are already transacting about $3,000 per square foot at close to close to $2 million, right? And let us just pull out a simple number to kind of do an indication. So if we look at the same size, right? Because for real model, we have the 538 unit. So we can actually do the same 14th floor. Let's say we use a 16th floor unit. Okay, 16th floor unit, 538, same size. And this property is going for about 1.547. All right, so this is for the smaller 2-bed, 1-bath. But they are all 2 bedrooms on average. And we're talking about the mid floor. Okay, so for 16th floor for River Modern, how much was it being sold? All right, for the 16th floor, River Modern is sold for $1.645 million. So we're talking about easily about $100,000 difference, plus minus lah. Of course, is $100,000 justifiable for a few things? So usually buyers, what many do is they self-justify. Like, oh, 100,000, okay lah. I mean, this is a newer, younger property. I'm by the river. And since I cannot buy Zion Grand anymore, then this is the only choice. So I'm okay to pay the $100,000. Does it sound familiar? If this is also something that you are using it to make a decision, then I only have to be very blunt and tell you that is very dangerous, okay, very high risk. I mean, no doubt we are, property for a newer property has always going higher and higher in terms of what we are paying, but we also need to justify it based on a lot more factors. So if you ask me for $100,000 for the same size, of course, layout, we did not compare in this situation, but if let's say we're just looking at the per floor, floor to floor, and of course, there's a lot of indicator, right? There's also the facing, there's also whether you are near the MRT, whether you are integrated, or whether you are walking distance to some of your favorite places. These are all, I call it a lifestyle tax that we sometimes we will just add in ourselves. Okay, so what does lifestyle tax mean? Meaning sometimes I'm okay to pay more because these are the certain things that I enjoy and I want it. Be it maybe you are familiar with their location, or, oh, this is just a short walk to the MRT, and you treasure that as part of your priority. So then you are okay to pay the extra 100,000, you see. But from a layman perspective, that is how we think. Okay, but of course, if today you are intending to look at it from a different lens altogether, different perspective altogether, later on I will uncover how do we actually do comparison that besides just the pricing, what are the factors that will affect us when we are all in the resale market at the same time. All right, so this is something, comment in the below if you find that this difference of 100,000 plus minus, right, is justifiable and why. Share inside the comment. I would like to hear from you. So this give you a very clear price point differences, okay, from what we are seeing. So then of course we also want to start seeing that today, based on the lower floor units, how the 2 bedrooms are actually commanding. You see, so they are all, let me just change the color here. So you can see, let's say we are just pulling out a simple, maybe 7th floor unit, right? The average unit are about 1.573 million, and for the 646 units are about 1.913 million. So these are the indicative prices, right? So let us take a look at Zion Grand, right? So Zion Grand, if we look at the 538, we are talking about the 7th floor, right? 7th floor 538 unit is 1.495 million. Okay, 1.495 million. So for River Modern on the 7th floor, all right, is how much? 1.573 million. And this is for the 538 size lah. But if we, let's say we look at the bigger unit at 646, right? We also have a similar comparison, right? 646. This is 646. So this is at 1.805 million. Whereas for the River Modern, right? Let's say we talk about 7th floor as well. For River Modern, the bigger 2-bedroom unit are transacting about 1.913 million. So again, if you do the comparison, we're talking about also about 100,000 differences. So why is this when we are doing the calculation and we are seeing the general trend is acceptable? Because one of the key things is that 2 bedrooms are always very high in demand. And with these differences, we're talking, and when we are comparing the surrounding properties, they are averagely about 80 to 100,000 difference whenever there's a new launch property come up that is out in the marketplace. The only concern that if you ask me, I have is that even though the 100,000 can be justified, okay, for River Modern, right, due to different reasons. I think the only concern that if let's say today you are in the River Valley area is that the supply of 2 bedrooms is going to be extremely crazy. That's one. And second, because all of them are going to TOP almost the same time, which means we're talking about a huge supply of 2 bedrooms. And today, even if you are going to go for rental, will you be worried? Will you be concerned about like how much this owner have paid for in terms of the 2-bedroom units to rent? So which means the higher the price in River Valley, your yield for rental is going to be lower, because I can rent this same 2-bedroom, but you may have paid a little bit more because of the launch period, right? You miss out the chance on the earlier ones due to your ballot number or due to whatever reason. Yeah, so that will be putting yourself at a disadvantage, meaning you can still rent out your unit. It's just that you paid a little bit more for the same rental amount. Does it make sense? Yeah, because nobody will want to pay like an additional $500 more just because yours is a few months younger. Correct. So this is also where the competition, I believe, is going to be massive for the 2-bedroom. So to justify the 100,000 differences, that's where you need to kind of really work out your sums better on how you're going to do your property purchase, right? And another second thing is, of course, when it comes to the resale market, even if you want to hold it for the next 3 or 4 or even midterm 5 years, right? You are also 100,000 more than your neighbors. So which means your neighbors may not need to actually sell the price that you need to sell. So that's where competition becomes heavier. And the only choice that you have is you may want to just hold on your unit a little bit longer. So this is how strategy comes in when you are looking at not just what to buy, but how you want to sell in future. All right. So if this is something that makes sense and this is something that you find that it really relates to you, all right, comment below yes, so that we know that you are interacting with us and you are learning something at the same time. All right. So again, 100,000 gap is not like crazy. So we believe that there's still going to be a demand for this kind of units in time to come. Of course, there will be also the other perspective, like when you start comparing even Zion with the surrounding, even River Modern with the surrounding properties, then there are other factors that will come into, and we are talking about quality, we're talking about facing, we're talking about the appliances, we're talking about the unit mix, and also the facilities in the development. So this is where River Modern does have some advantage because of the river facing, the closeness to all this lifestyle, and it's a different vibe if you compare to all the way to Zion Grand, right? So every different developments definitely have their own charm, their own pros and cons. It's just a matter of how much do you value those aspects and those specific criteria. Okay, so the next one that we want to kind of compare is kind of take a look at the 3-bedroom. Wow, so 3-bedroom is where the fun part goes. So for River Modern, what we are seeing is their per floor jump is also not as crazy. Okay, it's about 8,000 per floor jump. And also again, the higher floor jumps also went to about maybe 10,000. That's what we're seeing. So one of the key things is that what we realize is that today, for the 2-bedroom, that's what they benchmark on, right? But for the 3-bedroom, what they did was they looked in at least about 11,000, about 11,000 jump for 3-bedroom. Okay, so this is the difference. So of course, for a bigger unit, the quantum is also bigger, which means maybe a lot of buyers will not be so concerned about how much per floor jump as long as I can get a unit. Okay, and so we also notice a few extra loading between the 22nd floor and 23rd floor. All right, the loading is about 14,000. Okay, 14,000. And we also saw another jump at 26 to 27, which jumps 23,000. All right. So these are all very important details that we want to kind of look into. And for the bigger 3-bedroom, which is 904 square feet, right? They are jump ranging from 12,000 to even 18,000. All right. So these are also indication for you that next time when you are looking at properties, you are a little bit more sensitive into also the price jump per floor, and that can give you a better indication on how much premium do you want to pay for, especially for the higher floor units. And what we notice also for 27 to 28 floor, the jump is 27,000. Of course, 27,000, if you ask me, is it a lot? The moment when you calculate based on your money mortgage, actually is very little. But the key question is that today, if both units, 27 and 28 floors, are available, which one will you want to buy? You see, so this is where the strategy comes in. And again, we also compare it to Zion Grand. So Zion Grand for 3 bedrooms averagely is already about close to 3 million at 3,000, slightly 3,000 per square foot. Okay, so if we take Zion Grand, of course, their sizes are much bigger. Okay, so later on, we will actually do a very clear comparison for River Modern. And because we're going to take the river facing, which is so-called the premium units, to kind of compare it to another very similar property in River Valley so that we can see based on layout, based on pricing, where do we stand, because ultimately both projects are kind of somehow similar but also still got some differences, and how will they look like in the resale market when both becomes a resale. All right, so that's what we're going to study later on. So continue to watch the video and remember to subscribe and like this video. All right, so if we look at Zion Grand, right, again, we want to just kind of pull out one of the sizes, one of the floor level for mid-floor, right? So let us just use level 15 as example. And if we compare it to the 797 in River Modern, of course, in Zion Grand, we don't have lah. So we can just use the 861 square feet as a guideline, okay, for the 15th floor unit. And this unit is really transacted about 2.495 million. So let's say we talk about the same 15th floor unit at for River Modern. For the same 15th floor unit, we're looking at about 2.421 million. All right, so 2.421 million. So this is for the smaller 3-bedroom. But if we let's say we use the slightly bigger one, which is in River Modern, is the 904 square feet. All right, so River Modern 904 square feet. To do a comparison, again, we don't have 900 over square feet, so we can either use the same 861 to do a comparison, or we can just go for the smaller 3-bedroom, right, which is the 1055 square feet, which is this unit, 1055 square feet, all right, which is this unit. So if 1055 square feet unit, it is about 3.11 million. But for River Modern, for the 15th floor unit, this one is about 2.889 million. So size-wise, of course, Zion Grand is bigger lah. Okay, it's much bigger. So we also need to kind of use this as a benchmark. But if you look at the pricing comparison based on the size, that's where we want to go to the next level, which is the layout comparison, which I'm going to show you. But this is also giving you a key indicator. So I believe what River Modern has done is that they are trying to fill up the in-between gaps. And I think that's a very smart move of the Guaco Land, right? They kind of fit in the sizes where the other developments don't have. And they kind of want to let a bigger pool of buyers be able to purchase the property, right? Because they are doing 797, which is much lower than Zion Grand, which means your entry is definitely going to be easier. And then they did the 904 square feet, which is smaller as well because you did not cross the 1,000 square feet. Yeah, so different strategy, different developers will have. And this is also important because if let's say we are able to fill in the gap in terms of the in-between sizes, then the buyers out there is all about their affordability. So in the 3-bedroom, I believe Zion Grand will need to kind of reach out to a buyer pool where they have deeper pockets. Whereas for River Modern, everything is sub 3 million. I think in the resale market, the smaller sizes for River Modern will definitely be very, very attractive. Okay, so this is something that we see. And this is all on the mid-floor level. So let's take a look at the lower floor units and how do they pan out. Okay, so for the lower floor units, you can see, let's say we take about, same thing, we take 8th floor unit, just a guideline. So 797 is about 2.34 million, as well as the 8th floor unit for the bigger one is about 2.805 million. And then we use this to compare to our Zion Grand again. So Zion Grand 8th floor, you can see 861 square feet is 2.413 million. All right, so this is the 8th floor. So if we use a 2.34 million for 797, this is RM at 8th floor, which is 2.344 million. Okay, so the difference is that the Zion Grand is slightly bigger, but the quantum is actually not much diff lah. So if we are talking about both differences, we're talking about just slightly 100,000 difference, yet I'm getting a bigger size in Zion Grand. Will it make Zion Grand more desirable? All right, so this is where we want to start looking at the comparison of the prices law. All right, so for I realized my screen was off just now, so just to give you a quick overview, 797 was at 2.344 million for the smaller size 797, and the 904 square feet is 2.805 million. And when we compare it to Zion Grand 8th floor, the price is 2.413 to 2.34 million, which is a smaller River Modern size. So with the 100,000 difference, I believe Zion Grand may have a slight edge because it's bigger and the price point is not a huge difference. So this is how we kind of analyze a lot of the developments out there. But let's say we look at the same thing, the 8th floor unit, the 907 for RM, right? Their prices is about 805 million. All right. So 904 is bigger than 861. So to pay the extra 400,000, does it make sense for River Modern at 904? But if you use the smaller unit at 1055 square feet as a comparison, then it's very clear today if we are doing a comparison how it will become. Okay, so this is how we kind of look into the 3-bedroom smaller unit. But the difference will be when we are going in compare the premium unit, which is the proper 3-bedroom premium. So for again, we want to take maybe a 23rd floor just to give us an indication. You can see that the prices for 1098 already went up to 3.744 million. And for the same bigger unit, it's already crossing 3.7 million. So without 3.7 million, you cannot buy a 3-bedroom okay, in River Valley. All right, so this is also an indication, but let's say we compare it to Zion Grand again on the 23rd floor, right? Actually, no, because I use a lower floor level. So let us just adjust this to maybe even 17th floor instead. So it's 3.6 million. So not much different, okay, for both, about 3.67, 3.64 million range. So let us just take this as an example. So on the 17th floor, we can take a look at today for the 3-bedroom 1076 square feet. This is the closest comparison that we can use. It's going about 3.204 million. All right, 3.204 million. So if let's say we use a same 17th floor unit for RM, okay, be it whether it's the 1098 square feet, okay, or the 1,000, let me see, 1,109 square feet. All right. So both prices, we are ranging, let's say on the 17th floor. Let me just make sure that the numbers are correct. We're talking about 640, and 17th floor will be 3.67 million. All right. Million. All right, so this will be two pricing. So if let's say today we're looking at just purely from a size perspective, 1076 and 1098 and 1109 out. I mean, there's definitely differences, but is it going to be a huge margin of almost $400,000 different? See, so this bigger unit, if you ask me, for River Modern, it seems to be priced extremely high because there's a gap about 400,000 for the same floor level. We are using floor level as an easier indicator, right? Again, there's also still many components that we need to look into: facing, floor level, the type of quality, the layout, all these things we need to play out. But if let's say today, based on a resale buyer perspective, when you look at the prices, is that the very first thing that you look at whenever you want to go and see the viewing? Right. So at 3.2 million, next time when Zion Grand want to sell, if they're going to sell at 3.5 million, it's still below what you purchase at River Modern. So because River Modern, if you buy at 3.6 million, you have to sell at least 3.9 or even 4 million, right? So who will exit faster in due time? All right. So these are some of the things that we always constantly look at when we are helping our clients do the research. Because our objective is not just to help you to buy a property. Okay, our objective is whatever that we are going to buy, that is not going to be your last stop. That is not going to be your last property, right? So we need to look at how your exit strategy is going to be so that we can be very competitive in the marketplace when it becomes a resale or when you intend to move forward with your plans. Does it make sense? All right, if you are learning something so far, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It will really do a lot for us, so that we can continue to kind of do up more mind-boggling kind of research for you all to kind of assess where the market is heading to and how you as a homeowner can determine and decide on your property without guessing. Okay, very important. All right, so this is something that I find that when I see the pricing, but ultimately people still buy lah. At 3.6 million for 17th floor, people still buy. All right, so it's very common, especially during a launch where you buy in and you didn't realize whether do you overpay for that property or not. I wouldn't call it a mistake. It's just that you may not have done enough research to determine whether a certain price makes sense or not. Yeah, because if today you have done your homework and you know that your surrounding prices are only hovering about 3.2 million or even maximum 3.3 million for that kind of price range, I will always have a walkaway price for my clients that even on the day when it releases the prices, we know the prices is already overwhelming, we will just walk away. All right, so I hope that some of you may have done this homework to also walk away if the price point just to make sense. All right, so I also want to kind of quickly let you see the lower floor units just to give us a indication. All right, so the lower floor units, if you can see, let us just pull out level 7 just to give us a good indication. All right, level 7 and level 7 for the bigger unit as well. Okay, bigger unit as well. So they are ranging about 3.4 to 3.5 million already. And let us take a look at Zion Grand for the same 7th floor unit. Okay, so we are using 1076. You can use this, you can use the 1055 unit. So they are ranging between 2.9 to even 3.1 million for a similar size, versus if let's say today you're buying River Modern at almost 3.4 million. Okay, 3.4 million for the 7th floor unit, right? And the bigger unit is already close to 3.5 million. So we're talking about a price gap also about $300,000 to even $400,000. So will this price gap be come back and hurt you later on when every one of them becomes a resale? And this is a very real question that you need to ask yourself. And since in this video, the buyers who bought for River Modern will not be watching, so this is something that I also want to share with you as a future buyer. When you are going for property launches, you need to be extra careful with such comparison. All right, so moving forward, I'm going to use the very similar comparison of River Modern being a river facing, and we're going to use it to pit against another project that also has river facing, and that's none other than River Green. Okay, so there's always this debate going on, right? River Green, when they first launched in River Valley area, everybody was complaining about the size like very small, you know, all these details, and it's done in a very, I wouldn't call it premium approach. A lot of people are saying that, oh, you are in River Valley, how come do you do your size so small? But I believe that is a very smart strategy from developer, where they want to make sure that there's a lot of upgraders and making the price point very acceptable, okay, very attractive as well. But again, this is what it is. Even if today you want to buy some of the prices in River Green, they are all mostly sold out. So that's why a lot of them who missed out, maybe even River Green, they missed out Prominent Peak, they missed out Zion Grand, and that's why they eventually settled for River Modern. If that is also you, I'm not saying that your strategy is incorrect, but could you be missing out on different perspective of how you should be doing property? All right, but let us study into the layout right now. So what we have done is we pull out only the river facing units and pricing, so that we have a indication of how much they are going for. So if you can see for River Modern, right, their layout is a dumbbell layout. And for the 6, 7, 8 square feet and 6, 8, 9 square feet, there's not much difference, except the entrance of your kitchen is a L shape versus a C shape. Okay, so that is the main difference. The sizes of all the rooms and the space, as well as the length of the rooms, are all similar. Okay, so and we also have indicated using the prices. I'm using a 8 to 10 floor just to give us a gauge to kind of understand how much the prices are. So although they have started the pricing from 2.015 million, this is for the lowest floor, 2nd floor, right? But the moment when you cross up to 8th floor, right, you can see that the prices went up to above 2 million, 2.1 million and 2.114 million. And for this layout, for the 6, 8, 9 square feet, the prices also, because of the size is bigger, they already, for 8 to 10 floor is already above 2.14 million. All right, so if we use this to compare to River Green, the first thing that what we want to compare is layout. Okay, we want to kind of see the layout first. Are there actually much differences? So let me just blow out this, since the two River Modern layout are quite similar. And if you study River Green, right, they are of course a smaller size, but they are able to fit in a study. So this periodically becomes a 2+ study configuration, where you also get a 2-island kitchen, and which is semi-enclosed, right? You have an extra study space here. And if you look at all the various size of the rooms and the toilets, they are somehow also not too much different from River Modern. Maybe a little bit slightly smaller because they have to fit in everything plus a study at 657 square feet, right? But again, what they have done is both properties are also dumbbell, and both units are very comparable because we are only using the river facing. Of course, there will always be a debate later on when it becomes a resale, whether the 2+ study compressed into a 657, is it livable or not? And for some of you who have actually been to River Green show flat, you know actually whatever they have built is very functional, very livable. So that also gives a lot of confidence that today, even if you are renting it out to a tenant, they are all looking at livability. Okay, they don't care how much you have purchased, they don't care so much about the floor level and how much premium you have paid. They just want a place. So in the rental market, I believe it will be very highly competitive, and also based on pricing next. All right, so the first thing we look at layout, then the second thing we look at is price. So if both prices, we just use the smaller 678 square feet, right? So 678 square feet, you can see that it's ranging from 2 million to 2.11 million. And if we look at it from a River Green perspective for the 8 to 10 floor unit, we are talking about only just under 2.1 million. So your prices did not even cross 2.1 million at all. Okay, so which means that today, from a selling perspective, on a resale perspective, if you are very price sensitive kind of buyers, if all the 3 layouts are out in the marketplace, how much will you need to pay more for River Modern? And which means that your buyer pool will also shrink a little bit. So if we start looking at prices like this, then it also gives us an indication is that will that 100,000 or 120,000 more extra that I'm paying for River Modern, does it equates for my selling price in future? What is the kind of risk that we're putting ourselves in? All right, so this is very important. And for 2-bedroom, of course, this is how the layout is. And I think one of the key things is that today we also need to understand from a 3-bedroom perspective, because 2-bedroom, I believe across the board for most of the developments, it's not going to be too much of a difference. The only thing is your entry price and how you're going to sell your exit. And the only time where you need to kind of maybe make the same amount of money than your neighbors, right, because they are younger, is that you may just need to hold on a little bit longer for the price to appreciate more. So that is something that you can do, provided you don't have a strict timeline on your exit. But of course, the 3-bedroom, then it will make a huge difference. That's why the higher the quantum, there will always be more risk. But the question is, how can we lower down that risk as much as possible so that it's safer for us to enter? So let us just study the 3-bedroom right now. So River Modern 3-bedroom, you can see today, based on this, right, the size of 893, and we're going to pit it against River Green 872. Okay, you can see that both layout somehow it's not going to be too much of a difference. But of course, River Modern have a slight edge because being an 893 square feet, they have done it in the dumbbell, which means that theoretically there's more space because there's no wasted space like corridors and all. And so this is how they have done a dumbbell. So you have one side and 2 sides kind of a layout. And the prices for 83 or 893 has really went up to above 2.7 million for the 8, 9, and 10 floor. So if we do the comparison for River Green 8, 9, and 10 floor, right, they are hovering only between 2.5 million to 2.6 million. So we are also theoretically about 150 to 180,000 difference. And what is the advantage for River Green here is that you get an additional storeroom. Okay, you get an additional storeroom here, which the River Modern don't have. So this is again come to now to personal preference. Sometimes if you want to get a compact 3-bedroom, a lot of the compact 3 bedrooms do not have storages, which is a major concern. That's why they end up doing storage base and all. But River Green, although the size is smaller, they managed to fit in a household shelter, which from a theory perspective is functional, is livable. So that's why these are all very key important parts, that how does your property weigh out in the resale market and where this property lies in, right? Because we have done so many comparison recently, right? And this is something that I also want to introduce you all, that today, actually, if you know how to do your research, it becomes very, very powerful. Okay, again, let us take a look at now the more premium 3 bedroom for Real Modern, the 1098 square feet. They have already crossing the price point of about 3.5 million. Okay, for the 8, 9, and 10 floor. For River Green, of course, it's unfair to use a 3 bedroom because it's very small, right? It's also kind of to look at 980 square feet to do a comparison based on size. It's a little bit difficult to compare. But if let's say you are a family where you need the rooms more important, then River Green 4 bedroom is going to be something very interesting here. And I believe this 4 bedroom is filling in the gap. Okay, filling in the gap of buyers who wants to own a 4 bedroom, but you're not paying extra crazy price, which is quite smart from a developer if you ask me. Because their 4 bedroom, right, is only about $3 million only. Whereas if for River Modern, you are a proper 3 bedroom and you're paying almost $3.5 million property. So these are all the comparison that is very important for you to kind of look at from a perspective, you see. So if today you are looking at how properties are going to be done, then you need to kind of step back and ask yourself, have you done enough research to compare the property prices? And have you actually did a very sound deep dive into layout comparison like this? So I want to just give you a glimpse of like one of the key strategy that we do whenever we help our clients buy properties, whether it's new launch, whether it's resale, is to do comparison prices very accurately. And only after we do the comparing of prices, where do we stand out in today's marketplace, then we will go in deeper into even the layouts, even the facing, and even the quality of the project. All right, so one of the examples I just want to show you is that recently we also did a kind of a breakdown for our clients. And what we have done is we list down the entire resale and new launch that is highly comparable in today's marketplace. So one of the key things to do research is that you cannot use a tool or a property or some property that is maybe a boutique, 10 units, 15 units to do comparison, because those are very unfair comparison. So today we want to try to fit in the closest, youngest property around or just been launched, and we want to use it to compare to another similar development. Maybe in terms of number of units, it's quite similar. In terms of location, it cannot be too far off to kind of pull out some of these resources to help us compare. So this is something that we always do for our clients. And today, if you are missing out on some of all this comparison, then my advice to you is do more homework. Okay. So what we have done is, if you can take a look, right, even OCR resale right now for Jetscape, of course, it has been performing very, very well, right? It's already transacting about $2,600 per square foot. Okay. And these are all in the OCR market. Amor Residences, just TOP, already transacted at $2,500 per square foot. And if you look at the new launch for the OCR, we all know about Chuan Park. They have launched and transacted about $2,700 and $2,800 per square foot. And this is also one of the reasons why when this kind of prices are being transacted in OCR, right, there's a huge demand right now to buy into nearer to town properties. So the last year, launches like Penreef, Sky Holland, some of all these developments, you do see that they are also launching about this kind of pricing, and that's why the demand there is extremely high. But that says, is it that those who bought Chuan Park make a mistake? I have no comments on that. Okay, I have no comments on that because I always believe there are a few locations in Singapore, there's hardcore fans. Okay, buyers will just want to buy back those locations regardless of the pricing. Besides Serangoon, that what I know, East Side is also something like that. Okay, if you are somebody in the Easties or you are in the Serangoon fans, right, maybe comment below and does it resonate with you, or is this really true that what we are seeing? Okay, so then of course when we are looking at OCR and if we go prices into RCR, prices in RCR theoretically should be higher. And that's when we also start to understand, right? Some of the properties nearby in RCR region, they have already crossed the $2,700, $2,800 per square foot. Wow, this is where you will tell me, wow, then like that river model actually very good buy, because RCR already going at 2007, 2008. I'm buying close to $3,000 per square foot in a D9 location. Hey, why not? Again, are we self-justifying? Okay, One Pearl Bank has already transacted about 2006. Even Park Colonial, not integrated already at 2006. And some of the new launches recently, I'm sure you are also very familiar if you've been following my channel. Ori at 2006. Penreef has actually transacted about 2007. Grand Dunman, okay, most of the units are already been sold. They're going to TUP very soon. Also sold about 2,700. So the question is, I mean, this is another debate. Our Queenstown lovers will always say Penreef better, right? Versus the Easterner will always say Grand Dunman is better. But if let's say given a choice for both are almost the same per square foot, which one will you buy? No right or wrong answer. Comment below your answers and let's see whether there's a debate going on in this channel. All right. Of course, recently Zion Grand averagely is about 2008 and then Prominent Peak is about 3,000. All right, so this give us a good indication that in the RCR region and OCR region, how much are they actually transacting to? And today, if let's say you have a new launch property, right, that is kind of a hidden gem at about $2,700 per square foot, right? At close less than 2.9 million for a very comfortable size, will you want to even consider? You see, so this is one example that I'm giving you that actually, if today you are able to find a property that is cheaper than OCR new launch and resale, and it's even cheaper than all the non-town RCR new launch and resale, right? Will you put yourself safer? The keyword is safer when you're purchasing a property. Okay, so I'm not here to tell you that this is not available. All right, there is such an available property at this current moment. The question is, have you done enough research to dig out this hidden gem out there or not? You see, because one of the key strategy that we always want to look at, right, is that today, while all the prices are already been launched, right, are we able to buy at a lower entry price? Because the moment when we have a lower entry price, is it safer for us in terms of our exit? Because if Robinson Opus already transacted at 3,003, River Green already at 3,001, Zion Grand is about 3,000, Prominent Peak at 2009, Sky Holland at 2009, Penreef at 2007, now Holland Village, not Holland Village, River Modern is like somewhere in the between, right? Between 2009 to 3,000 per square foot, right? If today you are able to get a reasonable location, which is, of course, it will not be OCR, this one is a prime location as well, and the pricing is only starting from $2,800 per square foot. How much safety buffer have you given to you? See, so this is how we want to build in our safety net. And then, of course, the next question, as I mentioned, once we have seen the prices that, okay, this one makes sense in comparison, then the next thing we want to go in is maybe there's some problem with the layout, or maybe some problem with the developer. Sometimes these are all the things that we're questioning about, right, as a buyer. Well, if things are too good to be true, we also question. If it's not so good, we also question. So may as well everything also question, because that's how we do our research. Every time when we find that there is some things out there that seems to be too good to be true, we want to uncover what is actually wrong with it. So it's a different strategy. Okay, so that's why we will uncover the next thing, which is layout. And when we did our research, right, we realized that this 3-bed 2-bath 1012 square foot layout, and if we kind of compare it to a River Modern, right, do you see that actually is this unit actually far lesser superior than River Modern? You know, we are talking about actually a proper 3-bedroom units where you have an additional household shelter and your kitchen all have windows, even your toilets. Okay, which is a very important thing. Okay, so why is it? Because unfortunately, River Modern don't have window for the toilets. So we need to kind of find what are the better traits that we can have in the development, right? And also, of course, if you ask me, River Modern, they have this additional bath, as well as the flexi that they can do themselves too. But if let's say I'm looking for something that is much more straightforward, then could A choice be an option? We're not saying that you must buy, but while you're doing your research for River Modern, before you even purchase, does a property like this actually stands out as well, that you can decide whether which one is much better? You see, so this is the kind of research we do to kind of empower you as a homeowner, not to just chase launches after launches and ballot after ballot. All right, you may be missing out on hidden gems out there that could also fulfill your objective in later part. And even for this floor plan, we have the we have the bath, so-called powder bath at River Modern, right? But there's also a WC inside this option A. Of course, this option A is a very typical layout that every homeowners will be able to accept. And if let's say today I compare it to the tree layout, right, and I'm only using the 30th floor as a guideline, which means I already give you a hint, all the three properties can go up to 30th floor. River Modern 30th floor is already at 3.9 million. Prominent Peak, they are 1033 square feet, very similar layout, is already going at 3.1 million. And if today you are going to get in a 1012 square foot at just slightly above 3 million for a 30th floor unit, what kind of risk are we putting ourselves in? Are there actually risks? You see, so this is how we want to help you all to do comparison, not just chasing launches after launches. And what we do is we want to help you to disqualify 90% of the launches out there, because 90% is because a lot of people are buying based on hype and they don't even understand what is happening. And this is one of the key things why today a lot of homeowners, after they purchase, they will reach out to us and say that did they make a right decision? Is their purchase correct or not? I mean, all these things should be done way before you buy the property. And I always, more kiasu and kiasi, why not let's over prepare ourselves during this situation? And what we always help you all to bring through is that today we want to bring you to different stages during your purchase. All right, so this is very, very important, and not just about putting in a check for your interest and then just wait for the queue number and do it. So we do more than just bring you to see properties. Is we kind of help you to align well on what can be done and what cannot be done. So if you find that today whatever that I share with you, right, does make sense, and it seems like you have not been giving the guidelines of purchasing property in a more strategic approach, I will advise you to stop chasing properties anymore. It's time for you to take control of your own life and decide on what you want to do next with a very clear path and a clear decision-making process, so that your next property will not fall into a trap and you will not get stuck with buying the wrong property. All right, so if you find that today the comparison that we've done using River Modern as a guideline, and you start seeing that actually there's a lot more than just queuing for the ballot, right, then you may also want to kind of reach out to us so that we can help you to kind of decide how to buy properties and disqualify 90% of the properties out there. With so many different launches coming out, the last thing you want is you want to make mistake and you get trapped. All right, this is Coach Edmund. I see you very soon in one way or another. Cheers.